All right, today we're going to dive into a really powerful message. It's about a Christian doctrine that, honestly, isn't just about the future. It's about a hope that's supposed to completely change how you and I live our lives right here, right now. So let's get into it. But first, I want you to start with this one question and really think about it for a second. What if you knew for sure that today was your last day on Earth? How would that change things? The conversations you'd have, the things you'd prioritize. What would you do differently? Just keep that thought in your mind. Because the whole theme, the big idea we're exploring, is built around that very feeling. It's what the sermon calls a perhaps today hope. And what that means is the belief that Jesus' return for believers, what many call the rapture, isn't something far off that we're waiting for signs for. It's something that could literally happen at any moment. So here's the key takeaway. The return of Christ isn't just near, it is next on the prophetic calendar. And this isn't about, trying to predict dates or anything like that. It's about understanding a present reality, a reality that, if we really believe it, should have this revolutionary impact on our day-to-day lives. Now, to really wrap our heads around this perhaps today idea, we've got to understand one key word. It's a theological term the whole teaching is built on: imminence. It's probably not a word you use every day, but its meaning is absolutely central to this whole thing. So what is it? Well, in the simplest terms, imminence just means something is about to happen. It's impending. But in theology, it gets more specific. It means an event is signless. In other words, nothing else has to happen first. Not a single thing. It could happen in the next split second. And this is where we see a huge difference between something being next versus just being near. You see, if something is near, that usually implies that a few other things have to happen first. You're watching for the signs. But if it's imminent, if it's next, there are no preconditions. And that completely changes your focus, right? You stop watching for signs, and you start watching for Christ. Now, this isn't just a clever theory someone came up with. The sermon makes a strong case that this idea is just woven into the fabric of the New Testament. You get the sense that the writers themselves lived with this any-moment kind of expectation. Let's look at some of the verses that build this foundation. Take a look at 1 Thessalonians. Paul is giving this really detailed description of the event, and notice the word he uses. He doesn't say those people who are alive or they who are alive. He says we. He puts himself and the people he's writing to in the group that could actually be there for it. That shows you he believed it was a real possibility for his own generation. And it's not a one-off. He does it again in this famous passage in 1 Corinthians, the exact same language. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. You see this consistent personal expectation that Christ could show up at any time, not after some long, drawn-out list of other prophecies had to be fulfilled. And really, this goes all the way back to Jesus' own words. In the upper room, he makes this incredible promise. He just says, "I will come again and receive you to myself." That's it. There's no checklist of signs, no list of preconditions. It's just a direct, simple, and unconditional promise of his return. And it wasn't just Paul or Jesus' direct promise. This idea of eagerly, expectantly waiting, it's all over the New Testament. You see it in James, you see it in Philippians. The writers constantly encouraged believers to live with this sense of anticipation. The idea is that every single generation of the church is meant to live as if they're the one that will see him return. Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why. But this is where the rubber meets the road. Let's get into the so what of all of this. How is this belief, this doctrine, supposed to actually transform a person's life day to day? What difference does it make? The sermon shared this great illustration about the theologian Dr. John Walvoord. Apparently, he kept a little plaque in his office that just said, "Perhaps today." And this is so powerful because really only one view of the end times can honestly say that: a pre-tribulation view. The belief that Christ returns before a 7-year period of trial allows for that perhaps today mindset. Any other view automatically builds in a waiting period, perhaps in 42 months or perhaps in 7 years. And here's a story that just makes it crystal clear. Imagine your parents leave you home alone for the weekend. In scenario A, they say, "We'll be back Sunday night." Well, you know what that means. You can kind of let things slide, have a party, and then do a frantic cleanup right before they get home. But in scenario B, they say, "We could be back at any moment." Oh, that changes everything, doesn't it? You have to be ready constantly. That's the power of imminence. And what this all boils down to is a massive shift in our focus. Our gaze moves away from looking for dark figures and scary headlines, and it moves toward looking for our Savior. The sermon put it so well. Believers are not supposed to be looking for the undertaker. We're supposed to be looking for the upper taker. And this isn't just a nice thought. The theologian J. Dwight Pentecost pointed out that almost every single time the New Testament talks about Christ's return, the very next thing it does is give a practical command, an encouragement to live a holy life, to be patient, to share your faith. The whole point of the doctrine is motivation. So let's bring this all home. How does a perhaps today mentality actually play out in our everyday lives? What does it really look like to live in light of this incredible hope? Well, the Apostle John couldn't have made the connection any clearer. He says that anyone who has this hope, the hope of seeing Jesus face to face, anyone who has their mind fixed on that actively purifies themselves. The hope itself becomes the engine for holiness. So think about what that really means. It means you're more conscious of your choices, the things you watch, the words you say, because you might meet Jesus in the next 5 minutes. It creates an urgency to tell your friend or your neighbor about your faith because you realize today could be the very last chance. It means you don't let bitterness and broken relationships just fester. And it clarifies your priorities. You stop spending all your energy on things that won't last and start investing in what truly has eternal value. And that brings us right back to those 2 simple words. You see, this isn't just a doctrine to be filed away or debated. It's a hope to be lived. It's a question that has the power to change everything about your day, your attitude, and your entire life. Perhaps today. What will you do with that?